Welcome everybody to the construction industry VAT reverse charge thing, whatever we want to call it. As I say, we were going through, let me just put that on there. Right, so we were going through why we have reverse charge, what's happening, why it's come in, how it will affect most of you, and it's going to be talking about subcontractors and contractors and even end users. So it's everybody that it's going to affect in the system. What you need to do now, so what you need to sort of get off your butts and go and do now to make sure you're ready for it, because it's coming in about 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. How the actual reverse charge procedure works, and as I'm going to explain it to you, you'll probably find that you won't understand it. You probably do it wrong for the rest of your life. Most people who do reverse charge procedures don't do it right, but it doesn't really matter.
Don't just put it on your phone. No, I need to.
Let me just see. Let me just see if I can.
Every single thing, which is so useless. So.
I lost me. And then any other useful points that have come out, and followed by questions that we'll ask at the end, and obviously I'll give you a few useful links. Okay. So I'm getting a bit of feedback. So if you've not muted, could you please mute yourself?
Don't have to do that.
Yeah. Right. So why have the government introduced reverse charge procedure? Well, if we have a look what they say, it's to stop fraud, as they're calling it, in the VAT system for builders. Okay.
Can't hear what he's saying.
If I show you the next few slides, it might become apparent, I will show you where the weakness in the current system is, and why they've brought out reverse charge procedure to try and counteract it. So if we have a look, at the whole old method, so at the moment you have something like a subcontractor who will then charge a contractor. He will add VAT on, the contractor will add it back, claim it back. Then, of course, the contractor then charges the main contractor, he charges the main contractor VAT, and the main contractor puts it back. How do I do that? We're here.
Click top left above pictures and click hide.
Right, okay. Then the main contractor, if there's an intermediary, they will charge the intermediary, and the intermediary they will charge VAT. The intermediary claims it back, and then the intermediary then charges the end user, and the end user claims it back. So if you look at that,
I know you do. I know you do.
Look at that line there, you will see that the VAT officer the VAT office are potentially exposed, because the subcontractor charges the contractor claims it back, and then the subcontractor doesn't pay it over, i.e. goes bust or goes missing, then the VAT have lost it out twice. If the contractor then charges the main contractor, and the main contractor then claims it back, and then the contractor goes missing, they miss out a second amount, and likewise all the way up the screen. So what they've brought out, and this is only to the construction industry scheme, they've brought this new system out. So the new method is going to be that the subcontractor will charge the contractor with no VAT on it.
Like that,
the contractor will then charge the main contractor with no VAT on it. The main contractor will then charge the intermediary with no VAT on it. and the intermediary will then charge the end user 20% VAT. Therefore, the Inland Revenue are not going to be exposed all the way along the chain, only at the end. So there's going to be less chance of people not charging VAT and not paying it over. So this is why we are where we are. This is what they've introduced to bring the system to more success for them. But how does it affect you? That's this is what you need to do at this moment in time. So the first thing you need to do is you need to contact your customers. You need to decide where you are in the food chain.
We should have gone
whether you are a
a
contractor, subcontractor, or an end user. So you need to first of all be talking to your customers and finding out whether they are the end user, or whether they are just an intermediary or contractor. And if you're me, I will get them to send you an email to confirm that they're either the end user or they're not the end user. If they are the end user, then you will VAT at 20% or the relevant rate at what you're doing. So if it's a new build, it'll still be 20%. If it's doing up a commercial to residential, then it's 5. But you will charge the relevant rate to the end user. If they confirm they're not the end user, then of course you don't charge them any VAT, you zero rate it. Then of course you need to contact your subcontractors, and you need to tell your subcontractors who you are, whether you are an end user or whether you are an intermediary, so whether they need to charge you 20% VAT or 5% VAT or no VAT. And sometimes you might be both. You might be an end user if you're putting a building up yourself, and you may also be a contractor, so you will be in the zero rated. So you would then have to tell your subcontractors what they've got to do, which invoices they've got to zero rate, and which invoices they've got to charge standard rate VAT on. You need to amend your invoices. Not only do you need to take the VAT off, but you need to put something at the bottom that says that we've zero rated this under the construction industry scheme. However, you are now responsible for the VAT, and you need to pay the VAT over at the relevant rate, 20%, 5%, to HM Revenue and Customs. Okay, so that's something that you need, something like that you need to put at the bottom of your screens, bottom of your invoices. So you're telling people that you've reverse charged the VAT, and therefore they are now responsible for it. You need to talk to your software providers. All of you are on software. We know Sage Line 50 have now brought in a couple of new codes. I'm not quite sure what they are, but you will need a new code, a new T number, in order to account for the reverse charge of the VAT. And I'll teach you a little about reverse charge in a minute. And if you're on cash accounting, that's where you account for VAT when the customer pays you. You have to stop. You have to, if you're inside the reverse charge procedure, A, you have to stop because that's the law. B, you'll want to stop anyway because you'll want to claim the VAT back as soon as possible, not when you pay the bill. So from the 1st of March, if you're in the construction industry scheme, you want to get out of the cash accounting scene. And if you're struggling with your software, then we'll try and help. But for those people that are on cash accounting. So reverse charge procedure. I hope you all try and understand this. So the subcontractor charges VAT at zero rate to the contractor, and the contractor then adds VAT onto that as a purchase and onto that as a sale. So in box one, so if it's £1,000, the contractor will put in box one 20% VAT, and in box four 20% VAT, and the box five, which is the difference, equals 0. But that's what you are supposed to do. This is what reverse charge procedure is. What you're doing is passing the line up. So the next person then charges 0 VAT to the main contractor. The main contractor then adds VAT to their sales and to their purchases, and the box naught makes no difference, and on we go through. So then it comes to the intermediary, which again, the intermediary will add VAT, they'll be charged at 0.8, and they'll add VAT onto the sales and onto the purchases, and then they will charge the end user 20% as normal, and then most end users will claim it back. So it's great, isn't it? The Inland Revenue actually don't get anything out of the whole scheme, but that's VAT for you. Yeah, it's a bit topsy-turvy, VAT. So other useful points. If you're now getting your VAT back, i.e. you're going to be 0.8ing, you can apply to Customs and Excise and do a VAT return on a monthly basis. That way you can get your money back quicker. So if you're now not charging VAT, but you're putting fuel in your vans and buying materials and tools and everything else, then you can charge VAT, and claim the VAT back once a month rather than once every 3 months. The reduced rate, so the 5% zero rate for all the way through the chain, is disregarded. It's only charged at 5% at the end. So to the end user, you would charge it at 5% or 0.8 or 20%, depending whatever rate is. Everybody else throughout the chain will charge it at 0 rated. Separate invoices for materials and labour. If you do separate invoices for materials and labour, you don't have to. If you do a normal invoice, then the materials and the labour will both be 0 rated. If you do it for labour only, it will be 0 rated. If you do it for materials only, then it will be charged at the standard rate, 20%. This CIS scheme is only for the labour and materials if they're associated with the labour, as it would be normal under the CIS scheme, hence the name CIS VAT. Working through existing contracts, they've given us a date from the 1st of March to the 31st of May. So depending on if you're paying stage payments or you're paying normal payments, then if you invoice before the 28th of February, you'll charge no VAT. On the 1st of March, you will start to charge normal VAT. If you're halfway through a job, you can sort of choose who you want to, as long as you invoice them before the 31st of May. If you're going to invoice them after the 31st of May, then the new reverse charge procedure will apply. Okay, so go through that just once again. If you're working through the 28th of Feb, 1st of March, and you're invoicing, then you should apply the new rules from the 1st of March, and you should. But if you're halfway through a contract, you don't have to, unless you stage payments, and then your stage payments will change on that date. But once you get to the 31st of May, you have to apply the new rules. So there we go. Payments, if you've done the work before the 1st of March and you receive the payment after the 1st of March, then it's still going to be treated as the old-fashioned 20% charge, 20% reclaim. If your customer doesn't pay you until after the 31st of May, you've then got to go back and re-invoice it, and it's got to be under the new reverse charge procedure. And You can carry on using the flat rate scheme if you have those people that do use flat rate, but you will be out of pocket if you do, because of course you'll now be charging VAT 0 rate, and you'll be paying something like 12 or 13% of that over to the HM Revenue Customs. So flat rate doesn't work. So if you're on the flat rate scheme, get off it as soon as possible. Again, if you need any help, contact me or the office, and we'll help you. VAT on domestic new builds, again, they are 0 rated, but as I said before, you will have to charge the VAT as normal. So it'll be 0 rated all the way through the scheme until you get to the end user, and then they will charge the VAT at the relevant rate. And again, if the work is being done before the 31st of March, the 1st of March, then the old rules apply. And if you're doing the work between March and May, it depends on when you raise the invoice. And then after May, it has to be, whether they've paid you or not, it has to be on the new scheme. So if I can get this to work, I'm going to try and mute you all, unmute you all, or whatever. Right. Right. Hopefully, has that unmuted you all or not?
It
No,
allows
you're all
us to
managing
unmute
to
ourselves.
unmute yourself. There's 29 of us, okay? So it is going to be difficult for me to take any questions. So you'll have to just shout out in any particular order of any questions. As I say, I will try my best to answer them, but it is new to me as it is you. So has anybody got any questions on that?
Please. If from the 1st of March, the bit where you said between the 1st of March and the 31st of May,
Yeah.
I misunderstood. We could invoice it either way.
No, you can only invoice it either way if you're already in a contract. So if you've got an existing contract with somebody, then depending on how that contract is, then you could say, well, you know, with the works ongoing, and we could charge it at the new rate or the old rate. But if you're starting a new job after the 1st of March, then you've got to charge the new system anyway. It's only,
but it's our choice. If say we've done a job on the 25th of February and we finished it, and we don't invoice it till the 1st of March, we can invoice it at on the new system.
New system or the old system, whichever is,
Okay.
yeah. Depending, of course, where your customer, whether you are an end user or whether you're further down the line.
And then just one other question. The bit where you said, I've been writing notes, reduce rate disregard. My only comment next to that was, what?
Okay. Well, VAT for build is very difficult, but if you're doing extensions to people, then the normal rate would be 20% VAT. If you do repairs, 20% VAT. If you're doing a new build, then the rate is 0 rated. And if you're doing work for people that have either got conversion from residential, from constructional to residential, business, commercial to residential, then so things like loft conversion, not loft conversions, barn conversions and things like that, then you would be charging 5% VAT. There's a reduced rate.
Very happy to say that won't affect us.
While you fall somewhere in the middle, you ignore that. You only now get interested in that at the end user.
I just won one.
Anybody else?
Yes, pound.
I can't hear you over somebody else. Sorry.
Hi.
Hello, has anybody got any more questions?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how useful that was for you.
Obviously, if I do a labour job only, do I charge that at the full VAT rate, or is it 5%, or is it 0?
If you're doing what's, did you say labour only?
Yes.
So if you're doing labour only, then it depends on who your customer is. If your customer is another contractor, then you will charge 0 VAT. If your customer is Mr. Jones who's having his house built, then you would charge VAT at the normal rate.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
What happens if it's just labour only?
That's even if it's labour only, yeah. Especially if it's labour only, you would still charge it as 0 rated.
Yeah. The cash accounting where I don't pay the VAT till I get paid the invoice.
Yeah.
Did you say that's going now?
Well, the problem is, of course, is that you don't want to be on cash accounting anyway, because if you've got to wait for your supplier to pay your supplier before you get the VAT back, it was quite useful when you was waiting for your customer to pay you, but your customer's not going to pay you any VAT. So why would you want to wait till you've paid an invoice? You'd want to be on an invoice system, not a cash accounting system.
No, I'm on about my VAT, where I charge the customer. Like now, I'm owed a lot of money.
Yeah.
So obviously, if I'm not on a cash VAT thing, I've got to pay that VAT because the invoices are out there. They just haven't been paid.
Yeah, but if your customers aren't end users, then of course you won't charge them VAT.
Yeah, but most of my customers will be end users.
Right. Well, the legislation does say that the cash accounting system is not to be used in conjunction with this.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I've got over £200,000 outstanding.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna. So if that might take another 30 days, and like now, my VAT's due at the end of February, and I could be standing out all that VAT till the customer pays me.
Okay, well, I can only tell you what the legislation says, and the legislation currently says that the flat rate scheme is not to be used.
That could be an issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is why we're doing courses to try and put out the issues, but they definitely say that the flat rate scheme is not to be used. It's in the HMRC guidelines. It might be worth a call either to us or to the VAT man to clarify that, but that is the rule that they are using. Whether there is any room for wriggle because you're an end user, I don't know. We can try it, but
I mean, I could potentially standing out thousands of pounds, and it takes customers 60, 90 days to pay me.
yeah, and I understand that, but the problem you've got is, you know, they make a rule and 90% of people it doesn't make any difference to, and then 10% gain by it and 10% lose by it. You might be in the loser rules. It's something that I can only tell you what the legislation says, and you know, if we don't like it, we'll have to start talking to HM Revenue Customs. But it does quite clearly say in HMRC guidelines that the flat rate scheme is not to be used.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about with regard to purchasing materials? How does that one work then? So say I go and purchase a load of materials. Do do I have to pay the VAT, or do I just pay the VAT as if I normally would when they invoice me? How does that work?
Okay, so if you have materials only, so if you have somebody that's supplying you materials, or you're only selling materials, then this scheme doesn't work. It's just the old-fashioned way of you would be charged VAT and you charge VAT over to your customers. Okay, the only time that this scheme comes in is when there's a labour element in it as well. Okay, so if you're buying some windows and it's supply only, they will charge you 20% VAT. Full stop. That's the end of the story. If, of course, they come supply and fix, they need to be asking you whether you're end user, and they will charge you VAT if you're not. If you are the end user, and if you're not the end user, they should be charging you 0 rated.
Also, Alan, on rental income,
Yeah.
obviously it's still commercial, but do you just standard 20% on top of rental income?
Well, it should. This scheme doesn't apply to rental at all. Okay.
We're still, it's still renting buildings, you see, so we're still in the construction industry.
Yeah, but if you're renting buildings, the income from renting buildings does not fall under the construction industry scheme. And also you shouldn't be charging VAT unless you've opted your premises.
Yeah, I mean, the buildings are obviously on customers' premises. They're just my buildings.
Yeah. So are these are these temporary buildings then, or are they work buildings, or
temporary buildings?
Okay. Then if you're supplying that on a separate invoice, you will charge VAT in the normal way. It's not part of the construction industry scheme, and you shouldn't stop CIS money. If you're raising an invoice and it's included in the same invoice, then this will apply. Same as if you've got a digger, the same as any other plant. If you send a separate invoice for it, there's no the VAT old-fashioned way. But if you're charging a labour rate or anything else for it, then the labour rate will make that it now applies to the new VAT rule.
So I can just do them separately then, basically.
You could do that, yeah. There's nothing I can see in the legislation that will stop you from doing that. I mean, obviously,
fine, because I always itemise it anyway, so that's not an issue.
Yeah. Okay, which is what I said earlier on. If he's raising 2 invoices, one with materials, one with labour, or one with hire, one with labour, it's only the labour one that falls into the new rules.
That's brilliant.
Okay.
Alan, can we ask a question?
Of course you can. Anybody can ask a question.
Hi Alan, sorry, I've only just come late to the meeting, so sorry if somebody's already asked the question. But say, for example, I'm doing an extension and it's 40 odd grand plus the VAT. Obviously, normally I'll break that down into smaller VAT charges per invoice and stage payments. How does that work now? Are we?
Okay. Well,
Still charging the customer VAT?
if you're first of all, you've got to find out whether your customer is the end user or not. Okay. So if you're doing it for Joe Public, then they will be an end user.
Yeah, it's Joe Public. It's always domestic stuff for me.
Yeah, but it depends on who your customer is. If your customer is another builder, then
Which it wouldn't be now. I'm a main contractor.
Go on, sorry.
I'm a main contractor, so it's always just to the customer direct.
So you will charge VAT just as you've always charged it. So depending on what it is, that won't alter. The only thing that will alter for you is your subcontractors. Your subcontractors should now charge you 0 VAT.
Okay.
Okay.
And how do they pay their VAT on that? Say, for example, there's a Sparky's charge and it's 2.5 grand that's built into my costings.
Yeah.
He would normally charge me £2,500 plus the VAT. So how does that work now?
Well, he'll just charge you the £2,500. He won't charge you plus VAT. You should then account for that VAT by adding it on to your invoice and then claiming it back. So, so you won't be any worse or any better off. I mean, this diagram I showed you earlier on, it's only going round and round and round in circles. It's not. Nobody really should be much better or worse off for this scheme. It's just trying to put the collection of the VAT at the end of a project rather than all the way through. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So your electrician
Yeah.
won't charge you VAT, but then when he used to charge you VAT, he should have paid that over to the VAT man. So,
Okay.
so what your electrician will do, okay, is he will now be getting VAT back from the VAT man every month or every. So he should go on monthly. And there's some call to say that a lot of your subcontractors who are VAT registered now ought to be VAT registered, but that's probably a different meeting.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Alan,
sorry.
Go on. No, go on, carry on.
I was just going to go back to the material invoices.
Yeah.
Just to clarify on that. So we do labour and materials. So am I best breaking it down to charge one invoice for materials and one invoice for labour, or do I just carry on as normal, charge it all, and we don't charge the VAT on any of it then?
Well, the answer is you won't be any worse off if you apply the new rules, apart from cash flow. Depends on how you pay your customers and how you get paid. Yeah, if you pay your suppliers earlier than your customer pays you, obviously you'll want to zero the VAT, so you can claim it back from your customer supplier and don't have to wait for it to come the other way. Yeah.
Yep.
If your customer pays you early and you don't pay your suppliers till late, then of course you're going to want to do it the other way around. Okay. Because you're going to want your customers to pay you the money that's in your bank a bit longer before you pay the suppliers. But either which way, you're not going to actually be out of pocket from HM Revenue and Customs.
No, because you're either paying them or you're not getting it paid. It's one or the other. I get that.
Exactly. So it's up to you, and it's up to every individual business to have a look at their scale of the business. I mean, today is not a fix all. I'm expecting lots of phone calls from lots of people on this. But I just wanted to start the ball rolling so you all get some understanding of what's coming in, what you need to do about it, and if you need any further help, then that's what we're here for. But I think you'd be better off not charging VAT, putting it all on one invoice, unless it's.
So regardless if we're labour only or labour and material, we just charge zero rate to anyone.
Providing your customer's not the end user, that's all you've got to do, and then it's zero rated all the way through.
Okay, that's fine then. Thank
you.
Yep,
Sorry,
thank you.
Somebody else was shouting out.
Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, VAT is chargeable to an end user like a domestic customer. So if you're doing a private job for someone private, then you're charging the VAT on that if it's supplied labour and materials. If you're working for someone as a contractor for an end user, so to the end user. So for example, I'm doing a development now for 4 buildings for orderly retirement homes who are the end user. I would charge them if it wasn't new builds, which it is, I'd be charging them VAT, but because it's new builds, it's zero rated anyway.
Yeah.
And then if I'm doing work for another company on the MOD bases or in prisons, because I'm not the end user and the government is, so the scale is the government, Amy, my customer, and then myself, I wouldn't charge them any VAT either.
Yeah. The whole thing you need to do, first of all, and this is everybody, thing you need to do, you need to talk to your customer, make sure that they either are the end user or they're not the end user. That's the important thing for you to do. And then, of course, tell your subbies that you are either an end user or you're not an end user, so they know how to charge you. Once you've got that bit done, that's the most important bit. The rest we will sort out over the next few weeks when you all ring me up and saying, so what do I charge VAT on this one or do I not? But for now, the most important thing is to talk to your suppliers and your customers and get them to confirm where you are in the food chain or the VAT chain or whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Alan, do we have to get confirmation that they've paid the end users paid the VAT over?
You don't have to get confirmation that they've paid it over. It's not your responsibility. Okay, you do not work for HM Revenue and Customs. If they don't pay their VAT, that's not your problem.
So it's not going to come back on us.
All you've got to do is, if you've got a piece of paper from AJ and Son, then and it says we are not the end user, then that put it on file. Do no more. Yeah, you don't get any brownie points for working for HM Revenue and Customs. So all you have to do is do what affects you. So as long as you've established where you are, yeah, you're not bothered about the person below you or the person above you. That's their own responsibility. All you've got to do is make sure that you've told people where you fit into it. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's no comeback on us then.
No.
That's okay.
So, sorry, I've got one more question, Alan. So, as far as hauliers are concerned, so if I'm loading muck off a site and sending the muck away, obviously their invoice to me is a service which includes a lorry and a driver. Should they be charging me at VAT, even though I'm dealing with the end user?
Okay. In most cases, then, I mean, do you normally charge them? Do you normally give them a CIS certificate?
Yeah. So I try.
So if you normally have a CIS certificate from them people, then they are falling in the scheme.
No, they don't. I don't deduct any tax from them.
No, I didn't think you would. They're going to say they're outside the scope for VAT because they're not actually carrying out a construction service. They are transport, they're taking waste away. So they will charge you VAT as normal, like your suppliers would.
Okay.
Okay. It's only people that are actually physically in the construction industry scheme that this will affect. Okay. And, you know, people like carpet fitters, they're going to have a great problem because sometimes they are inside the CIS and sometimes they aren't, and engineering firms and everything else. But as far as building firms are concerned, this is where it goes. Yeah, this is for you lot out there. This is what it's going to affect you. Find out where you are in the scheme. If you can't remember what I've told you today, give me or somebody from the office a ring and find out. Tell us where you are. We'll tell you what you need to apply VAT to and not. Yeah. The revenue have given you 6 months to get this right. So any mistakes that you make in the next 6 months, they say they won't penalise you for, but after 6 months, then getting it wrong, they will come and sort you out. And as I said before, with the software, I'm sorry I can't tell you software codes, but Sage is the only one at the moment that said that they've done it. They're all trying to work on it. So Xero and QuickBooks, as far as I know, are working on it, and we'll have to wait for them to catch up. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, finally, Alan.
Sorry, carry on.
Okay. Alan, if the electrician, which he's going to be giving me an invoice now, and he's not going to put his VAT on, do I still deduct his CIS as well for his tax?
Yes.
Yeah, so he'll
effectively
have 40% less than when he first billed out today.
Yeah, not quite, because you always pay the VAT on the gross amount and then you get 20% off the net. But yes, he in cash flow for the subcontractor, it will be a bit of an extra whammy, because they're gonna so if you're an electrician, then the 20% that you had for 3 months before you paid over the VAT man is now going to disappear out of your cash flow. Okay. It means at the end of 3 months you haven't got to write them a check, but it means that for the next 3 months it is going to affect your cash flow. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Go on.
Sorry, Alan. So I know, just trying to get my head around it. Say, for instance, like we go and put a scaffold up on a normal domestic house.
Yeah.
That person that lives in that house is the end user. So we put VAT on that invoice. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then if we were to put a scaffold up, I don't know, for a builder who's building an extension, we would invoice him without the VAT. Is that?
You wouldn't charge him VAT as long as you do with scaffolding. Do you actually put him? You actually part of the CIS scheme anyway? Do they normally stop you 20%?
Oh, I don't know. My husband deals with that bit.
Yeah, I think if you're, I think scaffolding, I don't think actually falls into the CIS scheme.
Right, okay.
I think you're providing a service. I'm pretty sure that scaffolding, so with scaffolding, you will always charge VAT irrespective. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
It doesn't affect us.
So because I think the scaffolding is not actually part of the construction industry. It's a bit like carpet fitters. If they're fitting carpets to new build, they're outside the scope. But if they're fitting lino floors, they're inside the scope. And I think you sort of fall in with that. I'm pretty sure you're not in the construction industry scheme. Yeah.
So they just carry on
So
invoicing.
you carry on regardless. Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
So on this quarter's tax return, then it'll be a sale in box 2, a purchase in box 4, which will be then nothing.
Okay, so if you're raising invoices, then there'll be 0 in box 1, nothing in box 2, 0 in box 3, all your purchases in box 4, the refund you due in box 5, and then your net sales in box 6 and your net purchases in box 7.
Be a bit of a mess to start with, isn't it? Because some invoices will be the new scheme and some will be the old scheme.
And it's going to be even bigger mess if your VAT year end, a quarter end, isn't 28th of Feb.
Why? Well, rhetorical question. Why couldn't they make it start in the new tax year? But there's no answer to that, so I'm just having a whinge.
Well, they've been putting this off for 2 years, so this has been coming for 2 years, and we've been trying to hold off running the course because, of course, I didn't want to spend all this time teaching you something and then cancel it, and then but they assured us at Christmas that this is going ahead, so hence we're trying to run a few courses out, trying to get people to gear up on it. As I say, I'm not intending you to all go away from this meeting knowing everything, but I'm hoping that at least it's giving you a good insight and a start to what you need to do for VAT going forward. Has anybody else got any more questions? Okay. Let me just close that. That's not good. Right, okay. I don't know whether we'll forward these to people, but these are some of the literature out there that you can get more details of. So if you want any of these useful links, the HMRC, the top one, the HMRC is the proper one. Good luck to you. It's about 16 pages long. It's very, very confusing. Even I had to think about some of the points on it. The second one, they're experts in VAT for the construction industry, and theirs is quite a useful little read if you want to add it onto our course. And likewise, the Sage people, they've done quite a nice little expose on reverse charge procedure as well, if you want to have a read. Okay, so as I say, if you need us, ring us.